Hi, my name is Clara Stokes. I am focusing on a program evaluation that I actually have a lot of interest in. Right now, we're in a pandemic, correct? And it's completely changed the way we lived. It's shut down businesses and events, which has created us being home quite a bit more often. This has made me wonder if this increase of being home has increased depression. But I went a little bit more specific than that. I I love video games personally. I grew up with them. I think they're wonderful. I've never been I would say I've never been addicted to them, but I don't know, in high school I played them a lot. But I wanted to look at video games on the help with depression because I've seen anecdotal stories before from people that said that the video game like saved them when they lost their job and saved their sanity. So I'm overviewing depression during the pandemic and the use of video games at this time to see if it's has an effect or has helped at all, and even if depression has risen since the pandemic. So, another interesting fact I thought, just with video games and mental health in general, is they're both like mental health has been around for quite a few years at this point, but the awareness of depression and the rise of it has been increasing for the past like 30 plus like years, and video games are relatively new as well. They've been around for about 30 years, so both of them are fairly new, and we're still learning a lot about them. We haven't, looking at the research, we haven't done a ton to actually understand the effects of video games on mental health. And there's so many different aspects. I learned a lot about the research articles. They looked at more than just depression, obviously. And they were each kind of different in the way the video games were done, what type of video games. It's just very broad subjects, both of them. So mine unfortunately couldn't be as specific because we had to do the dummy sets, but I did have about 4 different dummy sets because I wanted to look at 4 different variables. I wanted to look at video game use before and during COVID and depression levels before and during COVID. The reason I did video game use before COVID is because I know video games have an addictive nature to them at times, and I wanted to see if that person was using video games the same amount and if they possibly were addicted to them already or had a heavy use. My articles were really cool that I looked up. 2 of them show that there was a relationship between just emotional symptoms and video games, and it was a positive one. One of them showed no relationship, but they also clearly stated that they did not give the players a good amount of time to have that possible relationship. So that was a pretty big limitation of that one, I thought. Another one showed a bunch of Korean kids that had video game use and depression, and it showed that more kids that were depressed played video games, but it also explained that those kids likely lived in neighborhoods where divorce was more common. And then my last article was specifically about a video game that was made to reduce emotional symptoms, and it had a pretty good showing saying that it was the video game affected them positively, helping them to lower their emotional symptoms. So I picked the data dummy set 3, and so I chose that they would scale between 0 and 40 their depression levels and their video game use for all of them. I did t-tests and Cohen's d effect size to find this out. And with my data, I found that with that fake data, I found that there was no relationship between any of it except for video game use and depression before COVID. So going from that, I decided that the research that needed to be done with this needs to be done after COVID. Because if this was true data, COVID must have deterred the relationship somehow, or there's another variable that I don't know about. And that is, so I think it still would have a huge, a huge impact on us, but after COVID. And so research would need to be done for that. And if we were to fund this, the funding would need to be done after that research was conducted to see how helpful it actually was. So it did say that it was helpful, but not during COVID at all. And it didn't even say there was a difference between depression during COVID and before COVID. But I did have some strong limitations. My sample sizes were very small, and they were different numbers, so I didn't get like an equal amount. So by the end of it, I had like 4 samples per group, which is a strong limitation. And the way I would have conducted it was over social media because COVID. guidelines. So that was my study. I really enjoyed this subject and this project. I thought it was really fun to see those articles. So thank you.